So, good afternoon to everybody. Colleagues and participants of the 7th UNECE International PPP Conference. I am Tassos Kriakoukis, Ambassador Tassos Kriakoukis, an old ambassador and the diplomatic advisor of the Mayor of Athens, but also I'm a member of the Bureau of the UNECE Committee on Urban Development, Housing and Land Management. As you may know, our committee is very active with planning the long-term reconstruction of cities in Ukraine. It is my pleasure to welcome you at this session under the title Promoting Economic Recovery and Planning Post-War Reconstruction in Kharkiv and Mykolaiv through the use of public-private partnerships and innovative digital tools. I'll be co-moderating this session with our dear colleague Gulnara Roll, Secretary to the UNECE Committee on Urban Development, and she is going to join us online. This session is organized in person with an online participation in Zoom. Many really follow this in Zoom. And it will be held in English and Ukrainian with a simultaneous interpretation. And for those among you who want to use the interpretation, please speak with the technical support colleagues who are here in the room. This session will discuss practical experiences of the two Ukrainian cities, Kharkiv and Mykolaiv, in planning, rebuilding, and reconstruction after they suffered from the horrific attacks by the Russian military. Representatives of Kharkiv and Mykolaiv, closer? Yeah. Representatives of Kharkiv and Mykolaiv will present their experiences in the planning of the reconstruction and in how they engage the private sector and innovative technologies in this process. Building on those practical experiences, the second part of the session will include short presentations of international experts who are engaged in planning the reconstruction of these two cities and also on other cities in Ukraine. And these people have the experience in promoting the use of green and digital technologies and public-private partnerships to build back better. We invite you all to discuss which innovative digital and PPP tools could be applied and how they could be applied and how they could be to help Ukraine recover as quickly as possible in order to improve quality of life in the cities so that people can return, business can return, and really life can blossom again in the region. So, before we start the session, I would like to say a few words about the UNECE engagement in the cooperation with the cities of Kharkiv and Mykolaiv. Since April 2022, on the request of the Ministry of Communities, Territories and Infrastructure Development of Ukraine, UNECE coordinates UN4Kharkiv and UN4Mykolaiv initiatives which support the preparation of blueprints for reconstruction of these two cities. The UN4Kharkiv and the UN4Mykolaiv initiatives include two pilot projects which link relief, rehabilitation, and sustainable development through a series of activities which support the preparation of reconstruction master plans for Kharkiv and Mykolaiv. Since April 2002, the Norman Foster Foundation, and together with international experts, in close collaboration with the city government, local architects and experts, have been developing the new master plan for the city of Kharkiv on a pro bono publico basis. As far as the city of Mykolaiv is concerned, a global architectural company and its international experts, I mean OneWorks, have also been doing pro bono to develop the new master plan for the city of Mykolaiv. I now would like really to give the floor to the cities and their representatives. We have one in person and one online, and ask how private sector is engaged in the reconstruction efforts of these cities and how digital tools are used or may be used for the development of the master plans and meaningful stakeholder engagement. It is my pleasure to give the floor first to Olga Demyanenko, Director of the Department for Cooperation with International Agencies and Financial Institutions at the Kharkov City Council, and I hope she is ready to join us online.
Yes, if you hear me, yes, I'm ready.
Okay.
Okay, thank you very much. Yeah, thank you very much for the opportunity to have the floor. Thank you very much for the organizers of this event to have the opportunity to speak about Kharkiv, about Ukraine. Answering your question, you already told a lot about our cooperation with UNECE, with the Norman Foster Foundation. Today, Kharkiv is ongoing within this project. As you already mentioned, we started it in April last year, and in spite of constant shelling and bombardments that were ongoing in our city, we started planning the post-war Kharkiv revival. For us, it's very important and high priority project. And it's very important for the courage spirit of our city and of our residents. So then when the people feel that the city will be developed and developing every day and thinking about how to plan its infrastructure better, it is always, you can inside believe for the closer victory and coming back to the city, or even live, if you are staying now in the city, to live in the more convenient and more comfortable conditions. We are working hard on our project. We're working now on the conception for the master plan, the new conception, which is based on 5 major pilot projects. We are working together very closely with the Norman Foster Foundation, with our company, and with the local experts here in the different spheres. We created a working group on the local level. The head of this working group is our mayor, Mr. Terehov, who is involved in this whole process. Of course, we're also paying a lot of attention to the residents of Kharkiv. We've done already some questionnaires on the comfortable living, how they feel the city now, how they see the city in the future. That helped a lot us also to focus on the main points in the master plan development. But coming back to the issue of working with business, for today we'll give you some figures of the damages in Kharkiv. For today we have 5,000 buildings damaged. Among this is more from them are the housing. We have 50% of our education facilities damaged. We have 50% of our kindergartens damaged. A lot of critical facilities and objects are damaged in the city. So the scale of destruction is enormous. And for today, for example, among the 5,000 buildings, houses that are damaged, we already restored by ourselves, together with business involvement, 200, so that the people can come back to their houses and stay and come back to Kharkiv. We are not standing still here, and we are still in the process. And this year we are planning 50 more. And here is the involvement of business is very, very important, because even if you will have a financing, if there is no business and construction companies working in the city, it is not possible to do a lot for the reconstruction of any sphere of city life. That's why we are working here closely. Also, the business were the first who helped us in first war days, and still helping us with the food, with the supply of all the necessary components for the people, and supplying. For example, every day we have, still now in the city, we are giving the free lunches for the people, and the quantity of these lunches, for example, are 40,000 lunches per day. And for example, the food for such cooking of such lunches for the people, which are for free, given to the population of Kharkiv, the supply of the food is coming from business. So we are trying to work a lot with business. We are really glad that the business are now coming back to Kharkiv, because there was time, especially this time, the same time last year, when a lot of businesses went from the city, and especially the production, because Kharkiv is really famous for its machinery complexes and big factories, military factories, space sphere factories, and etc. But today, of course, we are talking only about the small and medium business, which are trying to come back now to Kharkiv. And we are trying to engage them to do that. And for this, of course, here we are also willing and asking our international partners to support that, because business needs some financing to restart and reload their activity. And we hope that in the future, we as the city will have such instruments to help business with the financing, with the grant money for their reloading their activity in the city. That's why we are now also looking for the partners in this direction who can help together with the city council to help the local business in the different sphere to come back to the city, to feel and to restore and to review their production lines or anything that was damaged during the bombardments. Regarding the digital tools that we are using today, of course, the digital tools for the master plan development are really important. We are also working now very closely with our IT community in Kharkiv. As you maybe heard, Kharkiv was known really as the IT hub of Ukraine, and the most IT specialists who were graduated from Kharkiv, and a lot of companies were located in Kharkiv. Of course, unfortunately, now a lot of them also moved to the western part of Ukraine, but they all hope that they could be able to come back as soon as possible. And we are working with them very closely on the digital tools that can help us in urban planning, in city planning, in architecture, and especially now in the damage assessment. Together with this IT community, we are now processing with the map on the damages of the city, so that you can see all the damages online, what happened and how they were restored or reconstructed already. So that platform will not only help us to work with that, but also will help residents and population of Kharkiv to see what was done for the reconstruction, what is planned, and when that or this building or house will be reconstructed or restored. Of course, we are now also together with our international experts, with NFF Foundation, working on the 3D modeling. This is also a very important tool for looking at the city from another point of view, and examining the spaces, for example, where we can build the new areas, the new districts, and the new neighborhoods. Because, for example, among these 5,000 buildings that we have today damaged, 500 of them could not be anymore reconstructed. They should be demolished fully. We have already the expertise reports on that. And that will give us like the empty spaces in the city that should be rebuilt. That's why, for example, the 3D modeling and the digital tools here will help us to allocate those like spaces, allocate this area in the city, so that we can construct the new one, or the reconstruction of the buildings that are damaged today. Of course, here we're also looking forward for cooperation with an international experts, and we are fully assured that the digital tools in the planning is very, very important. And we as the City Council are doing our best to fulfill as much as we can of the digital approaches to the planning of the city, starting with the GIS systems and ending with this special platform for the damage assessment. And of course, we are looking forward for the cooperation with an international partners, with an international funds for business support. We can be, as for example, a main major partner here with to give the financing to the business of Kharkiv, so that they could be back and they can work as they were working before the war. But without our support here, it's very complicated. So we are now trying to develop the special program on this support for the business. More exactly about and more exact information about the master planning work will be given from my colleagues and our big team from NFF Foundation, from our company, more exact projects that we are planning and how this work is ongoing. Thank you very much. Thank you. I tried to be very quick and brief. If you have any question, I'm looking forward to answer them. And sorry not to be there in person, but a lot of work here in Kharkiv, you can understand that. So hope to see you also soon in person, if that will be possible. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Olga. You gave us a note of optimism, really telling us about all the efforts you are undertaking in order to have a better future for Kharkov, because I'll never forget the intervention of your mayor during the last forum of mayors in Geneva, and the image he gave at the time was more than appalling. Let's hope for better days. And thank you very much, Olga. I'll give now the floor to Dmitro Falco, who is the chairman of the City Council of Mykolaiv. And I remember him quite well from San Marino. Dmitry, you have to.
Yes, thank you. Thank you very much. If you don't mind, I will make a short presentation on my feed. Actually, I've been sitting a lot during my travel to Athens. You know, before the full-scale invasion, it took like, I don't know, maybe 5 hours to get to Athens from, by example, city of Kherson, and our Mykolaiv airport was, the construction of Mykolaiv airport was just finished in 2021, and the first international flight was scheduled for April of 2022, but unfortunately now it's fully destroyed and not available for use. Of course, this is not the biggest inconvenience or trouble, actually grief brought to us by our neighbors. So, first of all, I would like to thank you for the opportunity to present the case of Mykolaiv and our geo-information system as a tool for long-term planning also. I also want to thank to UNECE team for supporting us, and it's very important that this aid is given not actually to all the country, but also at some particular cities like Kharkiv and Mykolaiv, and it's very helpful for us. Just to make a short presentation and a small intervention in context of the city, Mykolaiv is a quite young city by European standards. It was founded in 1789. Comparing to Athens, it's like newborn actually. So today it's the administrative center of Mykolaiv region, and it's a transport, industrial, scientific and cultural center of the region in the south of Ukraine. Prior to the start of full-scale invasion of troops of Russian Federation in the territory of Ukraine, we already worked on a geo-informational system and new master plan. Actually, Mykolaiv is one of post-social cities. You know that it was founded as naval and shipbuilding city, and all the flagships of Soviet Union and then Russia Federation were built in Mykolaiv. All the air carriers and actually the cruiser ship Moskva, which was sunk in May 2022, was actually also built in Mykolaiv. So this heritage of Soviet Union, and you know that the city was not like a person-centered, but it was more about production-centered. That's why it was not so comfortable, and it already was needed to be rebuilt somehow. So, of course, as my Turkish colleague said during his presentation on the previous panel, of course, that's a threat, but we also have a chance, this is a challenge, to build better than we used to have it before. So for this manner, we can use our geo-informational system and new master plan. So the main function of the geo portal of the city planning cadastre are review of the basic topographic map, thematic maps with information on the conditions and use of the territories, map navigations, search for objects, view information about objects displayed on the map, as well as accompanying documentation. Actually, for the moment, it's closed for the safety reason, because we cannot let our enemies to search the city and find out information about the city. But actually, it's very useful tool for cooperating with, for example, our new partners for developing new master plan, which are Italian company OneWork. So now they can get online all the necessary information for the working under the master plan. Actually, they said it's the first time that we do master plan not visiting the object, not visiting the city we are planning. So on this next slide, you can see the area of information that presented in public access on the Geo portal. More than 31,000 objects and over than 29,000 land plots are included. We also use this geoinformational system for working with the sessions of the city council. So it's a transparent process, and actually before the invasion everybody could enter the geoinformational portal and see the process of land issues submitted for consideration at the session, by example. So you could see that it's already been formed a land plot, and that draft decision will be submitted for consideration by session after the approval of relevant departments. So you can see all the steps of this submission. Actually, land procurement, and there you have the opportunity to familiarize with information about land plots which can be proposed for procurements. Based on the result of land auctions, a contract of sale, lease, superfication, amphithesis of the land plot is concluded with the participant of the land auction. So it was very nice and transparent tool for working with land leases. All data are contained on the digital topographical base and orthophoto plans of the territory. Actually, Mykolaiv is have big the Mykolaiv. Apologize. So the territory of the city is almost 260 square kilometers, which is quite a lot for the city inhabited with 500,000 people. After the full-scale invasion, GeoPortal was added by 2 layers, damaged objects and assessment of economic losses. So currently we can see that some districts were bombed, were shelled, and buildings were destroyed or damaged. For the moment, city is in close proximity to the temporarily occupied territories of Kherson region. Due to this reason, the city was attacked by troops of Russian Federation during 271 days on a daily basis. I should say that from the very first days of invasion, Russian troops, they moved very fast and seized huge territories of Ukraine, including Kherson region, and actually they moved to Mykolaiv, and some battles took place on the outskirts of the city. Then they tried to surround the city and cross the rivers of Ingul and Pivdenny Bug. And after that, they were thrown back to Kherson, and front line laid in between of Mykolaiv and Kherson, which is approximately 25-30 kilometers from Mykolaiv. After the liberation of Kherson, Russian troops were thrown to the left bank of the river Dnieper, and of course, life in Mykolaiv came more safely. And challenge was not so constant, and a lot of people came back to the city. Actually, from the 500,000 population, after the invasion, about 300,000 people, they fled the war to safer cities in the western part of Ukraine or abroad. But now people are coming back, and now we see that about already 400,000 people in the city. They also include, this figure is also includes about 60,000 people from Kherson. Yes, so these are temporarily moved person from Kherson. So damaged objects in Mykolaiv, we have like 964 damaged or fully ruined apartment blocks. More than 1,000 private houses, about 90 education facilities, 24 cultural facilities, 15 sport facilities, and about 17 health facilities. So among the key needs of the city in the long term, as I told before, we need to make new master plan to rebuild the city better as it was before the invasion. For this reason, we cooperate with UNECE, and Mykolaiv was one of the pilot cities selected by UNECE in order to develop new master plan for the city recovering under the United Nations for Mykolaiv initiative. City Council and our mayor signed a memorandum of understanding with Italian company OneWorks, appointing this studio to be the lead designers of the new master plan. During this fruitful cooperation, already the first stage of development was done, and it's include a preliminary assessment of the city, and now we move to another stage and actually developing the master plan. The vision of the city includes 6 main issues for the moment. It's industry and innovation, affordable housing, documental, sustainable mobility, governance, green network, and community engagements. In our new master plan, we also develop few pilot projects of the city, like housing, micro-districts, culture and heritage, industry and waterfront, innovation district, green and public spaces. I also should mention that after being a shipbuilding city, now Mykolaiv converted to the city of port, and about 45% of all grain export of Ukraine used to be loaded through Mykolaiv ports. For the moment, Mykolaiv is not included in the grain corridor, in the grain initiative. That's why all the ports are blocked and not operating now. This also causes huge economic problems for the city, because we cannot provide our citizens with the proper work and salaries. On the next slides, you can see examples of possible projects of public-private partnership in the framework of the pilot projects. First project is a multi-apartment residential building under the Heroes of Ukraine Avenue. I should say that many private and high-rise residential buildings in the city have been destroyed by missile attacks and can no longer be restored. And also, let's say about 1.4 million of square meters of housing, it's about 13% of total stock in the city of Mykolaiv, is located in sanitary, sorry, my presentation, protection zones, pardon. So those housings, they are situated in sanitary protection zones, so actually they also need to be removed. So this is also one of problems we have to solve in the city. The next example in reconstruction of the first Ukrainian gymnasium named after Mykola Rukaz. It was shelled and bombed. Actually, it's a historical building, very beautiful one, and the school situated in this building, but unfortunately it's been ruined, and we also now searching for some investors who want to participate in recovering of this school. Another one is that starting from February 24th, economic situation in the city faced negative consequences. As a result of hostilities, 19 industrial facilities have been damaged. For this reason, we really feel the lack of jobs, and number of employment people has increased by 2.5 times. And for the moment, people are coming back to the city, but they cannot find any jobs, they cannot find any proper salaries. So for this matter, we also now develop an industrial park, which is on the outskirts of the city. And the territory of the park is going to be 92 hectares. Priority sectors are light industry, food industry, energy, engineering, and logistics. So this is also one of the examples of possible public-private partnership in the city of Mykolaiv. And just another example of possible PPP cooperation is creation of green spaces by reconstruction of the different park zones in the city. And by this way, we can develop those green zones, parks for our inhabitants, but investors have a chance to provide there some vendor facilities, maybe restaurants and so on. So this is going to be also one of the examples for private and public partnership with the city council. As I also should mention that before the full-scale invasion, there was a great example of PPP for the concession of Port Olvia by company Q Terminals from Qatar. And this agreement, it also includes some investment in city infrastructure, which allowed for the city to increase its capacity. We have very difficult logistic situation because all the cargos are going through the city, including trucks and rail cars as well. That's why it's very important for investors also to develop the network of roads and railroads across the city. So this PPP with the Q terminals, it also included investments in the railroad facilities inside the city, which allowed them to increase their capacity on one hand, on another, avoid some damages for city environment. Sorry if I took too much time for the presentation. Actually, I'm worried not to say something important yet. I hope you will have some questions.
So I think, yeah.
Okay. You can try mine.
Yes, I try yours because mine is moved. Thank you very much for your presentation, Mr. Falco. And I was very much touched also about the school of Mykola Arkas, an Ukrainian composer, but of Greek origin.
Yeah,
exactly. So the ties between our countries are really there, and you can see them in many aspects. I'll skip the questions session because we are behind schedule. And I would like to ask Gulnara Roll to moderate the second part.
Thank you so much, Tassos. And thank you so much for the great opening this event. And again, to say many thanks to Olga and Metro and both cities for their political commitment, because this is really the excellent examples of the political commitment of the cities to do this, to work on this long-term reconstruction projects. And they have a lot on their plate, and whatever we can do, we will try to help. And this meeting is really probably one of yet few where we're discussing exchange of the experiences between these two cities, but also between maybe engaging other cities. So I would like now to give floor to our international experts working on these two master plans. So I see that Alberto Sindoya and Diego Uruki will be speaking about the experience from Kharkiv master plan. this will be followed by Stuart Smith, and further on, colleagues from OneWorks. So, Alberto, floor is yours.
Thank you very much, Gulnara. It's an honor to be here representing the Norman Foster Foundation. And as Gulnara was saying, I'm here accompanied by Diego from the Norman Foster Foundation as well, and Stuart Smith from Arab. We've been working very closely together with the city of Kharkiv over the past year. So it's great to see Olga here as well. And obviously a wide team of international experts that have been very generous to help us out in the work of the Kharkiv master plan. So I don't know if you can see my screen. So obviously we're here to speak about the Kharkiv master plan, and more particularly to speak about how public-private partnerships and, in this context, innovative digital tools can help the future of Kharkiv. As you all probably know, Kharkiv is a beautiful city. It's located in northeastern part of Ukraine. This is one of the pictures of the city center with one of the many rivers that the city features. It is the second city of Ukraine by terms of population after Kiev, with 1.5 million in population. But it's also quite an important industrial, cultural, and university center, which is one of the things that we've learned over the past year, and that we think is one of the essential things that will ensure a successful recovery of the city towards a bright future. It is also true, as Olga was mentioning, that it's very close to the border with Russia, 30 kilometers. So obviously it's a city right in the front line. And for this reason, it's obviously been quite damaged. But again, we think that for this reason and the strength of Kharkiv that we've seen over the past year, the city will not only recover to how it was before, but they will actually use this as an opportunity to improve many of the parts that the city wanted to improve. As it was previously mentioned by the moderator as well, our involvement with the city of Kharkiv started precisely in the context of UNECE in the second forum of mayors, when the mayor of Kharkiv, Igor Terekov, approached Norman Foster here in the picture. And obviously, he was asking for help to rebuild the city, but not from a negative kind of point of view, but as we mentioned, as an opportunity to use the words that Norman Foster himself was mentioning to improve the cities and create the city of the future in Kharkiv. So ever since, it's been a very intense year with a lot of people involved. As it was mentioned, obviously, we're very grateful for all the team working pro bono to establish the already vision of the Kharkiv master plan that we will develop in the coming months and years. We're obviously collaborating with many local architects, specific engineering team from the city of Kharkiv as well, the city itself, and obviously UNECE and many other international companies. And since we're actually speaking about PPPs, probably the most successful PPP strategy that we've developed is being able to coordinate these very public and private institutions over the past year to actually create this very meaningful document and to establish the vision for Kharkiv. And digital tools as well, we will see some innovative ones that we're using for planning the future of Kharkiv. But the truth is that in this context of war, really basic tools like even Zoom or Telegram that we've used to actually get to the Kharkiv citizens and to use those questionnaires, they have been quite successful. So sometimes we speak about very modern digital tools, but we have to acknowledge that the very basic ones, the fact that UNECE has been able to translate all their 120 meetings over the past year, that's been really helpful in order to achieve what we've been able to achieve over the past year. But as we were mentioning, we're here to speak about the future of Kharkiv. And as it was mentioned before by Olga as well, the city strategy and the vision for the master plan is composed of 5 pilot projects in key areas: heritage, rivers, industry, housing, and science neighborhood, and accompanying these 5 citywide strategies in key areas that need to be improved, such as transport, energy, water, nature, and economy. Obviously, we could speak a lot about all these, but today we're focusing on PPPs and new digital tools. So we're going to focus in housing for the importance of how these PPPs need to work, and for the science neighborhood to demonstrate how we're using innovative digital tools for this. If we start speaking about housing, as it happens in the rest of Ukraine, and one of the reasons why we selected this as a pilot project is that in the same way that Kharkiv started as a pilot project for the rest of Ukrainian cities to rebuild, we want all these pilot projects to actually be applied to other cities in Ukraine, and obviously to help out between all the cities like the team in Mykolaiv and like us, the rest of Ukraine to rebuild. So concrete panel housing is a key topic in this. 80% of the population in Kharkiv is actually living in one of these city blocks. And obviously a lot of these, like Dimitra was mentioning before, have been destroyed across Ukraine. But before the war, they already had quite some issues regarding insulation, quality of living, and so on. So with the questionnaire that we used with the city in the beginning of the project, that we almost got 20,000 replies to it, we actually found out that 75% of the Kharkiv population owned the houses they lived in. This was obviously because of the industrial past of the city, but this is quite important because it means that houses are private, that people want to go back to their actual houses because they own them. But the truth is that only 25% of them are satisfied. They speak about improvements in insulation, like one of the main things they want to improve, but also the need to include bomb shelters for future problems like the ones they're facing. But at the same time, they're very satisfied with the neighborhood. So again, the answer to this pilot project that we found out over the past year is that there is an increasing need to retrofit housing across Kharkiv and probably across Ukraine as well. This is obviously quite a daunting task. There's a lot of industrial capacity that needs to be built locally, in this case in Kharkiv. As we mentioned before, Kharkiv is an industrial city from its origin, and there's a lot of industries that are outdated or destroyed nowadays. So recuperating these types of industrial facilities to actually promote a local industry is one of the key things we want to propose for the housing pilot project, and one that we've come together with local architects. So to summarize the strategy, something that we've developed with Arab as well, we want the housing retrofit strategy to be actually locally driven by local architects, even through competitions of local architects, proposing different solutions for the different building blocks that we're going to select together with locals. But we want to introduce international knowledge and circularity in modular construction to upgrade these housings very efficiently by starting to reuse the materials that have been damaged from the buildings because of the war. We want to select some of the local industries that have been damaged or that are outdated. And we want to propose a modular construction industry that's locally driven with international investment and local investment to actually generate all the components that then we would add to the building blocks, not just to improve the quality of the neighborhoods and the public spaces, but also to actually generate energy efficient neighborhoods, which is one of the essential topics that Kharkiv is facing in terms of winter and comfort. To do this, obviously, this is not going to happen if public-private partnerships are not laid out properly. And we're obviously open to the discussion with the wider community in this forum, because one of the issues that's happening is learning from other European examples. Houses are privately owned, so obviously a lot of housing investments in an ideal scenario should come from private owners in order to improve the houses they live in. But again, since this is a very special context of war, we think that public funds in this case should be channeled as grants, as long-term loans, probably with some years of payback to private house owners in case they can do this, in order to face the huge challenge of not just rebuilding all the housing in Kharkiv and Ukraine, but also to improve the energy efficiency, which is not just a problem that Kharkiv and Ukraine are facing, but rather the entire European Union and the rest of the world as well. So again, this flow of public funds to private house owners and different strategies to do this appropriately is going to be one of the essential parts for this to happen. In parallel, obviously, we want to repurpose local industries to create these modular components. And again, we think that in this case, the inverse should happen. A lot of industries in Kharkiv are state-owned. Some are obviously owned by private hands as well. But we think that private investment is going to be one of the essential things, and international know-how to actually create very efficient modular components that can be retrofitted into the already modular panel housings that were built in Kharkiv in the past. So obviously, probably a lot of regulated pricings will have to happen in this case to ensure that private companies are actually being successful in their mission to sell and to promote the reconstruction of cities from within in Kharkiv, but that this is not done in a very unfair way for Kharkiv citizens. So we think these two things are going to be essential in terms of PPPs to ensure the successful reconstruction of housing in Kharkiv and Ukraine. These factories, the modern ones we're speaking about, could, for example, look like this. This is actually part of another pilot project, the industry one, which we want to modernize the existing industrial tissue of energy generators in Kharkiv currently, with probably more concentrated and decentralized energy solutions like these microreactors. But again, a lot of innovation will have to take place inside Kharkiv with the universities, with the companies, and together with internationals to be able to innovate in the way that we think Kharkiv should, in order to as Dimitri was saying, as well in Mykolaiv and Kharkiv and in other cities, to modernize the industries of agriculture, of energy, and many others. So for this, actually, in the first meeting a year ago with the mayor mentioned that they wanted to introduce a science park in Kharkiv in order to promote the linkages between industry, between universities, the public government, and the research centers. And obviously, they were looking into the future of Kharkiv as a city that innovates, a modern one to create economic development and new technologies. But the issue that a lot of science parks face is that they're usually isolated from city centers. So we've learned from past examples over the world that they usually become ghettos that are disconnected from the city centers because of lack of public transport, and that also it's neighborhoods that just function during the day. So what we're proposing is actually to combine the benefits of a science park that obviously we're very lucky to have an advisory board that's actually helping us in this, but to combine these with the benefits of a dense mixed-use neighborhood, like has been the case. And this was something that was requested by local architects actually to promote mixed uses in Kharkiv. In other words, if we combine these benefits, we can end up creating a neighborhood that is able to innovate and to develop all the new technologies that need to be locally developed to ensure, for example, the successful transformation of Kharkiv housing through retrofits. The aim of this neighborhood, obviously, it's to promote technological development at a city level that will also influence the rest of Ukraine. Obviously, this neighborhood should be an example in how it manages urban data. A lot has been discussed over the past decades on smart cities, that we obviously want to center these in a human-centered approach of creating lively centers, but again, that are very efficient in terms of using the best energy solutions possible in a decentralized way to not depend on big power plants. And in this case, we've already selected through a very thorough process with locals on a site that could have the sufficient area, 140 hectares for this phase one. And this is the Varavashova market site that unfortunately, as you can see in the picture in the right, has been damaged, heavily damaged because of the war. It used to be Europe's largest market because of demand driven by Russia, but obviously the new times will probably shrink the demand of the market. And we think this site, together with the river and together with the market, is ideal for such a science neighborhood. This neighborhood will still keep the market, the Varavashova market, in a compact and modernized version, adapted to international standards. But it will also boost a lot of new housing. As Olga was mentioning as well, a lot of housing that has been destroyed will not be able to be rebuilt. So new housing units will have to be built. And we think this site, which is actually in the center between Saltivka, the most heavily populated area in Kharkiv, and the city center, is actually the perfect spot for this, because it will link the two most populated areas in the city. It's served by a metro station, a bus hub that's located in the southern part of the site. And in here, we were trying to combine housing with modern workspaces that will allow future companies and growth of startups in the IT cluster specifically. Universities that have seen their buildings damaged could also be relocated to this area, as well as international research labs that we're working with could be integrated in this. And obviously, we're going to speak about digital tools in a bit, but this is a great example for successful public-private partnerships. International examples in science parks has shown that when science parks are fully driven by the public, many times they become too large of structures, not very efficient. And when science parks are actually driven only by private hands, many times the goals of the private investors and the goals of the city are not very well linked. So we think that a PPP configuration for the body that manages the specialized industries that Kharkiv wants to develop in the future should be set for this science neighborhood that we're creating. Again, like any good mixed-use neighborhood that we know of in Athens, for example, where the audience is standing right now, this is going to be full of shops, cafes, and restaurants, and new dance parks. That is something that Kharkiv is not very used to, but that they have requested as well to learn from past European examples. This mixed use, we want to actually do it in vertical as well, to create flexible modular structures that can accommodate office spaces, but also living quarters, because in the future, we don't know the needs that this neighborhood will have. So having this vertical flexibility is going to be one of the essential things that we're going to develop together with the structural engineers from Arup as well. Regarding new innovative tools, we're very lucky as well to collaborate with the MIT Media Lab for this project. They have developed this very interesting tool called the Cityscope, the city science team specifically, that is a hybrid physical digital tool that actually allows to play with physical models and digital models to actually test how a given parametric design will then influence into the city's economy, into the city's social inclusion, how this will integrate with networks. And when you change different building blocks, when you add more housing, when you remove a bit of office, you start to see the metrics of how that's improved, obviously driven by local data that Kharkiv has provided. This is not just a tool for architects and urban planners and engineers and city halls, but it's also a great tool for citizens, as they've demonstrated in projects across the world, in China, in Vietnam, in Andorra, and in the US. The citizens can be part of the process of designing their neighborhood of the future, as the mayor also requested. So we think this is going to be one of those great hybrid digital physical tools, obviously driven by digital computational analysis, to actually allow the citizens to decide how they want to design their neighborhood of the future. We've actually started already with a very basic model of Kharkiv, as you can see in the screen, which obviously will get improved. Again, we're very generous for the team at MIT for doing this pro bono as well, but we think this is a great start of how digital technologies can be integrated into the urban planning process, which is something that Stuart Smith from Arab will expand in a bit as well, to create a neighborhood of the future that's centered on humans, economic development, and sustainable inclusion. To close off with this slide, a drawing actually produced by my company friend Diego here, that if he wants to add something at the end, obviously that'd be great as well. But the aim of the science neighborhood is to link different parts of the city that have been unlinked in the past, the city center, Saltivka, but to also bring some hope to the future of Kharkiv citizens through a mixed-use neighborhood, very dense, that's looking to the future, with dense low-rise construction that provides safety as well, but that provides comfort to the citizens of Kharkiv, but that it also helps to position not just Kharkiv, but Ukraine as an international talent of magnet for technology innovation and urban planning. So thank you very much. I will let Diego add something if he wants. If not, I will pass the word to Stuart Smith.
Yeah. Thank you, Alberto. I mean, everything was very clear. Not much to add from my side. Just it was very, it was implicit in your presentation, in the presentation we just made. But it's also that we think it's important to integrate technologies in the urban planning design process. For that, we have MIT and Arab, and then although it was implicit, we will be using as well artificial intelligence in the design and the optimization of this urban fabric. So we will be able to collate all these different inputs that we will have in order to have a successful science neighborhood, and through artificial intelligence and these optimization algorithms, we will be able to mix them all and produce and come back to the city of Kharkiv with the best possible solution for this urban new typology that we are proposing here. Obviously, now Stuart probably will add a bit more onto this parametric approach in the design of urban neighborhoods.
Thanks, Alberto, Diego. Yeah, I just want to make 3 points. There's obviously a lot in terms of the use of digital tools that can be applied to master planning and reconstruction at this scale. But just picking up some of the points made by Diego and Alberto. First point around design, and this particularly applies perhaps to the science neighborhood, but it applies across the whole master plan. The development of an urban plan is quite a complex matter now, and in terms of optimizing urban density to create the best use of land, link it to transport systems and other infrastructure systems, but still create great public space that's got enormous environmental quality and therefore value to the city and the citizens. There's a number of very complex parameters to study all at once, and those might be, for example, around air quality, acoustics and noise, environmental quality, sunlight and daylight in public spaces, to create spaces that people will want to use, but also where nature and the environment will flourish. And to do that, we've now created tools that can do multi-parameter optimization, so we can study across all of the different parameters to find the sweet spot that gives you the best outcomes. And to do that in a digital environment, linking all of our analysis tools, means you can cycle through thousands of different variations to come up with the best one. So that's the first point around design and digital optimization to create great public space. Second point links a little bit to the housing project and some of the conversations that have already taken place around creating a materials cadastre. So we've been working with the Madasta team in Amsterdam to create a publicly available database of all of the materials that are stored in all of the buildings that we have in our cities. And with huge material shortages and costs rising, this is an important point in terms of reconstruction in Ukraine, to be able to use what's already there and to use perhaps some of the materials that have been destroyed, but to be able to reuse them. We're starting to look at how we could do that, in particular for the housing, but that could apply across the city. So the idea of creating a materials cadastre and creating circularity in the city, so to create a circular city through that public database. And then the final point is around how the digital tools could enable stakeholder engagement, both public and private. And one example we've developed a tool with various partners called Our Water. The water infrastructure in the city is reasonably complex with lots of different stakeholders, not necessarily all connected. Our Water is an opportunity to bring all of those systems together in a database and then start to link them and to link the design decisions that would influence the best outcomes. So those 3 points together around design and parametric optimization, creating a materials cadastre and creating a circular city, and using digital tools for stakeholder engagement, I think are the route towards a circular and green city, livable and great public space, and places that people would want to invest in and live in. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Alberto, Diego, and Stuart. There was a question from David Egiashvili, probably directed at you. Could you please share your vision for establishment of a single database of technical characteristics and property rights for land plots, houses, buildings, infrastructure, and premises, as well as competences of state databases of land and real estate objects, which are very important components for the master planning sustainable land management? I understand it's I think it's seems to be quite an extensive question, and we are already running out of time, but if you could present very shortly your comment on this.
Of course, not a problem. Thank you, David, for the very interesting question. We think this is one of the essential things that will need to happen along with the damage assessment that Olga was mentioning. So in other words, creating a database or where those housings are located in Kharkiv, how damaged those houses have been. In other words, if they're privately owned, if they're publicly owned. We think this is a process that needs to be publicly driven by the City Council of Kharkiv, obviously, because of data protection. We're very happy to help. As Stuart was mentioning, Arup has vast experiences in working with GIS systems that are linked to specific housing plots in cities like Kharkiv. So again, we will definitely assist in the technical part of establishing such a database. But again, this is going to be one of the crucial parts to ensure that these housings are actually rehabilitated in the most appropriate way, and that each of the housing gets what they need in terms of funding, as we were mentioning before, and in terms of technical equipment as well. So thank you for your question.
Thank you, Alberto. Because of the lack of time, we probably need to move to the next presenter, Anna Paes, the project manager for OneWorks, and yes, and Anna and then Vadim, just request to be very short because we're running out of time.
Yes, no problem, Gulnara. Thank you very much for giving us the floor. I will make a very brief intervention in order to integrate what has already been shown by Dimitro, and I thank him for his very detailed and extensive presentation on the digital tools that the city of Mykolaiv has. So I will focus my intervention on the different layers that these digital tools have allowed us to use in different ways throughout the implementation of the master plan that is currently taking place, as well as through the preliminary assessment. So I think that the first thing that our technicians were very thankful for was the fact that since the portal was available since the beginning, we were able to move very quickly into the creation of a baseline scenario and into the preliminary assessment of the existing infrastructure and land uses within the city before the conflict began. So this was the first time that we ran into the amount of data that they have and saw the potential that this could mean for us as technicians in order to be able to make more informed proposals. Then after this, of course, the layer of the damage assessment, as Dimitro was showing you in his presentation, they have been able to compile a very detailed database. And as of December of last year, we had members of the Mykolaiv City Council visit our headquarters in OneWorks, in which we presented to them a methodology in which we could use the damage assessment database that they have already created in order to be able to assess the condition of the land use. So this is allowing us to be able to propose an extremely sustainable master plan, because we don't need to start building everything from scratch, but we're able to understand which ones of the city objects can be regenerated and can be refurbished in order to welcome back the population. Then the third layer that this has been very useful for is, of course, the design layer. And here I'm talking about the fact that thanks to the database that provided us with the baseline, and to the overlaying of the damage assessment that is allowing us to understand the current city condition, we are now able to undertake a detailed quadrant analysis in which we are analyzing 1 to 2 kilometers squares of the city. And so quadrant by quadrant, we are able to understand what is the land use that is contained, what is the lodging population capacity, how is it linked to public transportation, how were the densities of the population before the conflict, and how we can rebalance those. And it is allowing us to make proposals of rebalancing mixed land uses for the master plan proposal for the city. And then finally, I would like to talk about the fact that, of course, this is also a great tool for what regards participatory design. So we had at the beginning, just as it was done for the city of Kharkiv, launched our questionnaire, and just as it was for Kharkiv, the population is extremely active and responsive. In the first 5 days, we received over 6,000 responses, and up to date, after the questionnaire closed, we reached almost 20,000. So it was a very successful initial data acquisition that we obtained from the population. But right now, with Politecnico di Milano, we are looking into integrating environment assessment and reaction apps. And so this is about using 3D apps in order for the population to be able to see what is the current condition on the site and what could be the future project. But not only that, but also to be able to go around this future project and interact with the app in order for us to understand what is their perception of the transformation of this future public space. And this is especially important when it regards to public spaces and to the connective infrastructure throughout the city. We're also running visibility and accessibility analysis within the quadrants in order to best understand how to link the entire network. So just to finish here, since the beginning of this project, we entered hoping to be very successful in building back better. And today we can for sure say that under the current conflict condition, if it wasn't for the use of the digital tools that we have at hand, this wouldn't be possible to the extent that we are achieving it. So thank you very much.
Thank you so much, Anna. It was really a very good conclusion on the importance of the digital tools. You know, what we see really in these presentations of the international experts, the complexity of the topics and the complexity of the tools in terms of engagement of the private sector, but also in terms of the use of the digital tools. And there are many more topics which needs to be covered. And of course, one of the topic is demining. And this is why the last kind of international expert presentation is, I'm very glad that Vadim Lysenko from the NGO Free Ukraine was able to join us and to say a bit about Mine-Free Ukraine app that he has developed, of course, which is serving not just these two cities, but the whole Ukraine, because this is one of the actual topics that all the cities and communities of Ukraine need to use. Vadim, floor is yours.
Yes, thank you very much, Gulnara. Hello, everyone. Very briefly, I'm representing an NGO which is called Free Ukraine. We are based in Geneva. We are helping Ukraine with humanitarian projects since 2014. We signed a number of MOUs, and since February 2022, we supplied more than 220 ambulances and evacuation vehicles, including Kharkiv and Mykolaiv, as well as developed this mine-free civilian safety app. So my idea is to focus a little bit more on the app today and show you how the tech can be used for civilian safety and for the Ukrainian recovery. So as you know, the issue of demining is very huge. 30% of the whole territory of Ukraine is contaminated with mines. It became the #1 contaminated country in the world. And also the CESU State Emergency Service are working every day tirelessly to take a lot of mines and explosive materials out of Ukraine. More than 350,000 objects have been already taken, and a lot of more needs to be taken out. So this is an effort which requires resource mobilization, and also this poses a risk for civilians, and also it must have requirement for the recovery of Ukraine. So what the app is doing, we developed an app taking into account our background in digital agriculture. We used the technologies based on GIS and the mobile app technologies, which allow to do the following. First of all, every civilian in Ukraine, as of August 2022, can report danger objects directly to the State Emergency Service of Ukraine, and it provides geotags, description, images, a lot of additional information which is needed to find the objects and to clear the objects. It also allows to view the Google Maps to know where are the hazardous areas are. Of course, Kharkiv and Mykolaiv is part of them. And it allows the civilians not to visit and to go to the places where they used to be before, like rivers, forests, parks, etc., if there is known mined areas or if there is known mined objects. And of course, there's a little bit of educational process in this. There is a directory with explanation guidelines, how the objects look like, how they are being hidden with real pictures and real in situ representations of those dangerous objects. So, and very important new additional element which we add to this to the new release, which will be available in May, is called Mine Risk Education Platform. So basically, it will become in the app streaming technology, which will allow different audiences to view all type of educational materials related to the mine risk education in Ukraine. So we have a number of features. All the development team has been in Ukraine. We have a lot of improvements. The app in the very first week gained more than 50,000 users in Ukraine, and we plan to support the app and make it, let's say, the best app to ensure the civilian safety in Ukraine. So we partner with the Embassy of Ukraine, State Emergency Service of Ukraine, and Ministry of Internal Affairs. We do believe that technology will allow more efficient and faster humanitarian demining in Ukraine. Our end mission is mine-free Ukraine, and we use, as a tech people, we use state-of-the-art mobile and GIS technologies to ensure that the demining of Ukraine will be done faster, more efficiently, with less use of resources. And I do believe that this is a very important element for, unfortunately, for the recovery of any territory which has suffered from the invasion. And that is why it's very important to also to think and maybe partner together for the future in this respect. Very briefly, I will show you a small video which will explain exactly what it is. So there is this app which allows to enter. It's in Ukrainian. With next release, it's going to be in English. So basically, you have the ability to report to the state government if you found something on the street. Of course, using all the precautionary and safety measures, you have the possibility to review the map, and you have the possibility to potentially explore objects which pose a danger in Ukraine, which are flying from the other side. So this is a map. It's a standard Google map. You see here Chernihiv, and basically, if you click on it, you can see where is it exactly located. It has been reported, and then you know whether this has been confirmed or not. So you have a very clear legend. If you click on it, you also see the radius on how far you should keep away from that specific point. And if you approach that point closer than what it is allowed, you have alert and vibration which informs you that you're in danger zone. And again, this is very handy having that in the pocket. It also shows you all type of danger objects which exist and allows you to stay away from those. In brief, take into account the shortage of time. I thank you for your attention. Thank you very much, Gulnara, once again for this opportunity.
Thank you so much, Vadim. And dear colleagues, we really tried to demonstrate one of the examples, but we know that in Ukraine there are so many talents. As I think Olga at the very beginning also mentions that there is so much of the IT expertise, there is so much of the private sector, and probably just to conclude, my message would be, it's important this cooperation is very important between the cities, international experts, United Nations, just to make sure that all this talent is really very efficiently put in place. And we really have very clear goals. And I really liked Vadim that there is a very concrete goal, right? Mine-free Ukraine. And this is what this app is doing. And this app definitely is inspiration for many other online platforms that we're planning to work together on also in the future to help cities to build back better. Many thanks to all the national experts. We definitely put online the presentations. Tassos, it is back to you, the moderation of the session.
Thank you very much, Gulnara. Thank you for your contribution, always precious. Now, we heard both Ukrainian experts and international experts. And I would like really to ask you if you have any comments or questions to make. It doesn't seem to be the case. So our session came to an end, and I would like very much to thank the organizers, to thank the presenters, the participants, interpreters we had in this event. And although we close this session, we will continue our work, and we appreciate to stay in touch and continue the discussion on another occasion. Thank you very, very much, and have a nice afternoon.